Hello Internet, in this video I will show you how I disassembled this T-90 transmission out of a 1946 Willys CJ2A. And after I show you the disassembly, I will give you my analysis of what I think it's going to take to properly rebuild this transmission. Now I could really use the help of those who have more experience than I do on the T-90. At the end of the video, when you hear my analysis of what I think is needed, if you think otherwise, please leave a comment, or if you agree with me, please leave a comment again at the end of the video. Now, this video is part of the Jeep Projects playlist on Scott's Garage, where my 89-year-old father and I are doing a frame-off restoration of our 1946 Willys CJ2A Early Edition. This video is also on the first time playlist on Scott's Garage, and that means it's the first time, meaning it's the first time that I have rebuilt a T-90 transmission. I've rebuilt other transmissions, but not a T-90. Therefore, I could really use expert advice, those who, again, are subscribed to this channel and are following this project. Keep watching. Now, the Jeep project on Scott's Garage is being sponsored by Kaiser Willys Auto Supply, KaiserWillys.com. If you're watching this video and you are restoring a Willys Jeep and need any part, please use my discount code SGarage upon checkout and get 10% off any item with the exception of tubs, tub kits, and tires. By using SGarage, you are supporting the Jeep project, and I'd really appreciate it if you would. Thank you. Now, before doing the teardown, I decided to just take a video, make sure later I can look at this and look at all the parts that are there, make sure they get put back correctly. This is the original T-90 for this transmission. I already took the control housing off where the shift levers are. Looking down in there, you can see some sand and just some nasty stuff. There's some really goopy grease on the bottom. Dad told me that when he first acquired it that the cover was loose and water had gotten into it, and creek water. The owner's son had driven it in a creek repeatedly, and I think I see evidence of that, sand. And then my dad, for whatever reason, he packed it with grease after he drained it rather than gear oil. Okay, here I'm removing the spring that holds the clutch throwout bearing and carrier. Next, I remove the ball upon which the clutch fork pivots on. Okay, here I'm using an Allen wrench to remove the bolts holding the main drive bearing retainer. Now, most of the bolts had a bunch of grease and dirt packed in. I couldn't get the Allen key to fit, so just use a pick to clean them out first. Now with the bearing retainer out of the way, I can remove what looks to be like a tar paper gasket. Here I'm removing the first of two snap rings. And this looks to be some sort of felt oil retainer. Okay, here I'm unnecessarily taking the bolts out of the oil collector or the oil slinger. I didn't need to do it at this time, but I mistakenly did. So here I turned it around, decided I would take out the main shaft first from the rear of the transmission, and which was the right thing to do. Then I could focus on the drive shaft portion. Okay, so I went back to the drive shaft. I didn't want to take any risk of damaging the drive shaft, so I used an old 2x3 stud and used that as a buffer, and was able to pound it down and to break that bearing free. Then finally, after working with it a little bit, it came out. Okay, here I'm moving on to the lower cluster, and I'm taking off what's called the lock plate. It locks the lower shafts in place. Okay, here I'm using a socket about the same size as the shaft size and a 3/8 inch extension, and just very carefully tapping out each of the shafts. Okay, here I'm just reaching in and pulling out what's referred to as the cluster gear shaft or the countershaft gear bearing arbor. With a little bit of persuasion, it pulled out. And now finally, the reverse gear shaft. Not shown in this video was the cleanup, which took forever, even just the inside of it with all the sludge from the heavy grease that was put in there, and but also the outside, and that it was a combination of sudsy water and brushes and oven cleaner and a variety of wire wheels. But I got to this point. I'll do a separate video on painting the case. But I want to move now to my analysis of what it's going to take to properly rebuild the transmission. Here's my theory of what happened to this T-90 transmission, and this will affect how I rebuild it. Now, Dad told me that when he acquired the Jeep, that the cover was loose, the bolts were missing. When he took the cover off, there was water inside, water and oil. He also told me that the owner told him that his son regularly drove the Jeep in a creek, and I think what happened is that without it being bolted down properly, the water got in, creek water got in, sand, and water and oil do not mix. That the water went to the bottom part, the oil would rise to the top part, and therefore here is my analysis. The main gear is in relatively good shape. This is the part that remained in the oil, and likewise the drive shaft I think is very usable. However, my diagnosis is that I'll need to replace what's called the counter shaft gear bearing arbor, otherwise known as the cluster gear shaft. Now let me zoom in and I'll give you a closer look. So I tried cleaning it up, but it's all pitted out. 2/3 of this lower gear shaft, it's all pitted, and that's from rust and from main parts of the gear just rusting away. And it's pretty clear. I mean, it's really bad. I just don't think that this is usable anymore, or if I do use it, it's not going to last that long. And you can see what happened. The top part's fine. So it probably sat just like this, and the water was at this level, and then the oil from there on up. But where it sat in water probably for decades, it just destroyed the metal here. So my plan is twofold to properly rebuild this T-90 transmission. First of all, I am going to completely replace the lower gear shaft with a new one from Kaiser Willys. They guarantee quality. My guess is that it's made in the United States, but they guarantee the quality of it. And it's about $144 on the website. So I'll be getting rid of this. And secondly, I'm going to order what's called a minor overhaul kit on Kaiser Willys for $66. It comes complete with all new bearings, seals, gaskets, snap rings, thrust washers, and roller bearings for the entire transmission. And I think with a combination again of a new lower gear and then the kit plus using what's the upper part of the transmission, I'll be able to rebuild this properly. You can really use your comments. If you agree with that or disagree with that, please leave a comment below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you got any value at all from this video, please give me a like. It costs you nothing, but is a great value to me and to my dad and to the Jeep project. Don't forget to use the code SGarage on KaiserWillys.com. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.